Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello everyone, checking in on Canadian MJ. We're going to look at WEED, APH, ACB, CRON, IIPR, OGI, TGOD, and TLRY. Before we get into it, want to give a shout out to the best MJ group that I've come across on Facebook, and certainly have come across plenty of instances where I find things out from this group and get some good information. So it's Marijuana Stock Traders. They've got about 17,000 people or so and have had some interactions with some of the admins in the past, and they do a good job of keeping things clean and on point. So check out that group if you are interested. So WEED, starting it off, I didn't trade Canadian MJ this week, and there was definitely opportunity for the bulls. And my reason for not trading it is I was trading elsewhere. There's been tons of great volatility in the tech sector for earnings, and this past week was really the week of Tesla for me in terms of just scalping trades. So it's a bit of a different trading style. When I trade with Canadian MJ, I hold a little bit longer, and the past 2 weeks I've been trading with more capital because these names are more liquid, so it's easier for me to get in and out of a trade. If I were to do a market sell order on CGC, I'm going to get way more slippage than if I use even bigger funds on a market order on a name like Tesla. So I have been, just the news on Tesla alone, Thursday I traded it over 35 times. So, I certainly haven't done anything near that on Canadian MJ. So just a different trading style, different opportunity, and nice to see multiple sectors with opportunity, and just need to stay focused and not try and do too many things at once. So I will be focusing on Canadian MJ a bit more this coming week, but again, always going where the volatility is. So right now we're looking at WEED, and we'll look at some of the longer term time frames as people are wondering, when's a good time to establish a longer term position as we head into the fall and the first day of sales as we're looking towards October. So right now what I'm anticipating to happen on this weekly time frame, we just established a base of support on WEED that's down at 31.81, and we're looking up at resistance of the all-time high. So the odds that we're going to form a lower high here compared to the all-time high are extremely likely. From there, the question is, can the bulls form a higher low compared to 31.81 and then break to head back up towards that all-time high? Or is this just a bounce to cool off some of the shorter-term RSI levels, and are we going to drop back down to a lower low? So that is the most important support from here until the fall, 31.81, and we're going to get a lot of information with how this pullback goes on the daily time frame. So if we see increasing bear volume and a very quick pullback back down to $35, the odds that the weekly higher low is going to form are going to be less likely than if the bulls can form, healthy consolidation on declining bear volume and then see another leg up. So those are different scenarios. I'll be watching the daily time frame for clues as to how the weekly time frame is going to end up playing out. We also have earnings to be watching. Earnings are Tuesday after hours. I personally do not play earnings. I wait until I trade the volatility before earnings and then after earnings, rather than, hoping that I get a reaction in my favor on earnings itself. And this is not just the Canadian MJ sector. I'm talking about in general. That's my trading style. So I don't like gambling on earnings. I'm not a fundamental analyst. And unless you're putting in dozens and dozens of hours of fundamental analysis in the sector, then you do not have an edge, even though you think you might. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on for the sector. The pattern has been that we see a sell-off after earnings, just like APH. So this is a little run-up into earnings. We'll see how much profit-taking we get before Tuesday after hours, and then we'll watch to see what that reaction is like. And that, again, is going to give us a lot of information. So if we see a sell the news reaction to earnings, the odds that we form a weekly higher low are less likely than if we get a bullish reaction, obviously. So that's what I'm going to be watching right now, in no rush to enter bullish positions. And we have to keep in mind that WEED is stronger than pretty much every other individual name. So it's not the kind of scenario where if WEED goes bullish that we can just get bullish on everything, because we are seeing the correlations break a bit where names like ACB are standing out as way weaker than a name like WEED. So at this point, in terms of support on the daily time frame on this pullback, the last higher low was at 32.85, and the bulls are looking for a higher low compared to that level. The less amount of consolidation, the better. to give the bulls the potential for continuation. So the entry signal was pretty clear here for WEED. The only tricky part was the fact that we haven't gotten any follow through, so it was a little bit hard to trust the bulls. So we had this resistance zone here where we had rejected from 34.82, 34.77, 34.57, so clear lower highs. We did form an hourly higher low, and then as soon as we broke this level of 34.57, you can see the bulls just ran with it with big high volume, and they took out all three resistances at the same time. And since then, it's been nothing but higher lows on the hourly time frame and continuation. So the signal was clear in terms of breaking resistance. It just was a bit hard to trust the bulls after the sector has been so bearish recently, and we did see a couple breaks recently that did not get follow through. We had resistance of 34.56, and we broke it, but no follow through. So it was a bit of a difficult trade setup in terms of trusting the bulls, but those that did were certainly rewarded. And it was the kind of setup where, you know, you didn't have to risk a whole lot. The hourly higher low was 34.15, and you could have put your stop loss there. And after that break followed through, it was really risking only about 60 cents or so. So congrats to the bulls that did capitalize on this sector strength this past week. APH saw a little bit of a bounce, but not surprising we're forming a lower high. And it's not surprising that we're doing that because we have lost the higher low pattern on the daily time frame. So when you lose the higher low pattern on the bounces, you look for lower highs to form. So we broke support of 10.11. We dropped down to 9.78. And after 9.78, the next support is down at 9.63. So the bulls need to see a shift in momentum, which is going to need a higher low and then a break of the lower highs on the daily. As long as the trend is bearish on the daily time frame, then there's no reason for the bulls to want to rush here into any kind of trade. Looking at the weekly chart, we do still have a base of support down at $8.90 and the mid $9 range. Those are must-hold levels for the bulls. If we were to break those levels, that is a major red flag. But if we can hold the support level here, in terms of a weekly clear bull break, that's not going to happen until all the way up at 13.45 in terms of seeing a lot of space to the upside and potential for continuation. So we're going to see a shift in the daily trend before we see it in the weekly chart by a long shot. So we're going to be watching our new resistance of 10.52. Let's see if the bulls can hold our recent low of 9.78, form a higher low, and then break that 10.52 level to start to shift this momentum on the daily time frame. ACB has just been absolutely falling apart, and at this point we have now seen 7 red weeks in a row, and we closed down at the low of the week. We can see it's solid bear volume over the past few weeks, and again, it's a lack of support. As soon as we broke 675, that was a major red flag because we had no clear support of consolidation after that level. So now we're looking down at 631, which has broken. 6 psychological, and then 555 are the next 2 levels. And we scroll back on the daily, the last time we were in this price range, and we can see we did not establish many supports. And there is actually a gap here at 494 to be keeping an eye on. Don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but it's good to be aware of potential longer-term targets. I think that there's going to be a great opportunity in ACB. We just have to wait for the scales to shift. So there's a scale of supply and demand, and right now supply of shares is clearly outweighing demand, and that's due to a number of things. We had the deal go through with the shares merging of the two companies with MedLeaf. We've got additional selling pressure there, and we've also got the fact that we highlighted, the fact that the ETFs now have a very large position in ACB because those two companies combined, and they are perhaps shedding some shares to lighten that load as well. So now we're looking down, like I said, at those supports in the... Really, there's little support. $6 psychological, and then the next level on the daily is 501. But the point is, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for the momentum to shift, because when the scales do tilt in terms of demand starting to outweigh the supply of shares, we're going to see a swing trade opportunity of a 20% bounce, in my opinion. We're just not there yet. We continue to see weakness. The daily bounces are getting no follow through. We had a daily inside bar bear break, which led to another leg down. We had another daily inside bar bear break, and if we break 605, we're looking at another leg down, increasing bear volume. Daily RSI is definitely oversold at 25, but we've been grinding through this oversold level on the daily for a couple weeks, and these short-term bounces of just a day or so are what cools off the RSI just a little bit to allow for another leg down. When's the last time we've seen 2 green days in a row on ACB? June 18th. It has almost been 2 months without 2 green days in a row. That is astoundingly significant bearish pressure. But again, the trend will change. We just have to be patient for it. The 4-hour time frame will be the first indication of a trend change. We have to break the lower highs. I'm looking at 631 and 642 as the first two resistances. Look at these exponential resistances. These are the ones that I use for crypto. I'm starting to use them on stocks a bit more, the 12 and the 26 period. But look at the 4 hour, how we continually reject from these exponential resistances. So getting over them and looking for a bull cross of them will be a bit notable. You can see we had the bear cross all the way up when the price was in the $9 range. And here we are 30% lower and still nowhere near a bull cross of those levels. So definitely not taking my eye off of ACB, but I'm also not trying to catch a falling knife. I'm waiting for the shorter term time frames to start a trend shift, and that allows us a support level to use. If we see the 4 hour trend change, we will have a low at that point to be using as a stop loss level. So still looking bleak in the short term for ACB because of the weak close down at the low of the day Friday, but still certainly on radar and not going to give up on it, because once that scale does tilt, like I said, there is going to be a solid opportunity there. Cron on the weekly time frame, holding up. We have to hold 550. A break of 550 would be a clear bearish signal, and that is the most important level for me short term here. And we just bounced off of 564. So bulls need to hold that level. As far as the weekly chart changing trends, we have clear lower highs of 815, 811, 719. And on this bounce, we would look to form a lower high compared to 719. And on the daily chart, we can see a solid bounce the last 2 days, similar to what WEED is seeing. We did break a couple daily resistance levels, but again, nothing really notable. 634, 629, and now 610 are 3 lower highs on the daily time frame to be watching, and the bulls must hold 564 and 550. So again, just like APH and WEED, well, actually, WEED is a little bit of a different scenario, but as far as the daily goes, have to form a higher low and then break that level of 610 to shift the momentum on the daily time frame and to see this bull MACD cross follow through. IIPR, like this one, just because it had a really nice pattern play out. And this is an example where having a chat room is really beneficial. So the weekly time frame, we've been following IIPR since the IPO, and it has performed really well since then. And we're looking for a higher low to be established on the weekly. 3180 was a support level, and we're trying to bounce off of 3161. Same thing, anything under 3773 is a lower high, so I don't anticipate this weekly to trend, the weekly trend to change anytime soon. But the daily chart, I really like this pattern. This is an inverse head and shoulders pattern. And why I say having a community and having a bunch of eyes on the market is beneficial is I had no idea about this trade setup on Friday, and someone asked about IIPR. So I pull up the chart and I look at it and I give my analysis and I say, wow, that's a clear inverse head and shoulders pattern. And we had a resistance level of 3370 that needed to break to be the trigger. And you can see it's just a pattern. What this pattern indicates is going from lower highs and lower lows. There's the head as the lowest point, and then we have a higher low as the right shoulder, and then we break the lower highs. So just like the head and shoulders pattern is a change in trend for the bears, an inverse head and shoulders pattern is a change in trend for the bulls. So lower highs and lower lows to a higher low, and then higher highs. And look at the volume that's behind this move and the strong close. So that's very notable as well. We did have earnings that came out on Friday after hours and a bullish reaction to that. So curious to see how much follow through the bulls can put together on Monday as well. Next resistance is going to be up at 3630 and then that 3773 level. Our daily higher low is now 3283, and anything above 3283 will be a higher low, keeping the bulls in full control. So really nice pattern. To see that follow through with that much significant action is a great sign for the bulls. And pretty much from the open to the close, we saw a move of about $1. Let's see, $1.30 or so, and that's pretty significant on a $35 stock. So congrats to the bulls there, and we'll see if they can keep this daily uptrend going. So again, a clear downtrend from the all-time highs, just lower highs and lower lows on the daily. That trend has now shifted. That's what I'm looking for on some of these Canadian MJ names. Checking in on OGI, there was an example here of a clear loss of momentum for the bulls, and just wanted to give an example of some exit signals in the short term. But as far as the weekly chart goes, must hold support to keep the bulls in full control. This is a pretty strong weekly chart, and there aren't too many of those in the Canadian MJ space right now. But 425 is the support that the bulls need to maintain to keep the weekly uptrend alive. And in terms of resistance, it's 533 up to 593. So the daily time frame, we just topped out and we pulled back pretty significantly, and we lost the daily higher low pattern when we broke 492. So what was the signal that we were losing momentum. It was this lower high here on the daily time frame. We established our higher low on the daily. We were unable to break and see continuation. 533 was resistance, and we topped out at 529. So the bulls held on for a couple days after that, but looking at it on the 4-hour time frame, the break was very clear where we had a double bottom of support at 513 and 512 for 2 days in a row on Wednesday and Thursday. As soon as that double bottom broke, huge bear volume and an all-out dump. So having a stop loss, seeing the inability for continuation and saying, all right, I don't want to, be in this trade and lose profits if we are going to pull back. So putting a stop loss below that double bottom would have saved you a significant amount of pullback, probably about 25 plus cents at this point, and it could go further because we did close at the low of the day with momentum completely favoring the bears. So have to be watching for the potential of further downside. 488 is support, followed by 470. And if we see, we will be looking for an hourly oversold bounce before we get down to 470. But again, on that hourly oversold bounce, we'll just be looking for a lower high to form because that trend has now changed on the daily time frame. T-God, really liking the setup here. This is what I'm keeping an eye on for the next couple of weeks. And that's because we have a very clear trend of lower highs and lower lows on the daily, and we're watching for a trend to change. So we had our low of the pullback to this point, and that low is down at 488. We have the high of the bounce up at 576, which is just another lower high, keeping the bears in control. To change this trend, the bulls are going to have to see a higher low compared to 488, and then a bull break of 576 to change the trend, just like IIPR just did. So this is a pattern I'm looking for a higher low to form early this coming week, and then we'll see if we can get this bull break for continuation. And if we do get that break, we're going to look for a weekly equilibrium. We would look for the bulls to make their way up into the mid $6 range, and we would look for a weekly lower high to be set, as we've been consolidating at this point for 2 months from that all-time high, and some change in that daily trend is going to give some relief on this weekly time frame. And just to show how patterns can be applied anywhere, I'm watching the exact same pattern on Netflix. Obviously, no correlation between Netflix and T-God, but look at this daily time frame where we have our lower highs and lower lows, just another lower high recently, but we're looking for a higher low to form because the magnitude of the bounce was significant enough on both T-God and Netflix. That's why we're looking for a daily higher low to form, and if we can break this lower high, we change the daily trend. So same exact setup. And watching, you can find these setups on all different time frames in all different sectors, which is why I love technical analysis, because it can be applied all over the place, and it doesn't really matter about the company or the fundamentals if you're looking shorter term and just sticking to what the price levels and the breaks of support and resistance are telling us. So that's what we're watching for T-God. Definitely top watch this coming week, as is TLRY. So TLRY has been consolidating since the all-time high, and we formed a higher low. So we're looking for a weekly equilibrium here as well. Low, high, higher low, and we'll look for a lower high in the $29 range, perhaps upper 28s or 29 itself. And the daily chart needs to change this trend, and we're close to doing so. Ideally, I wanted the same setup that we have on Netflix and T-God with our lower high compared to 27.74. We topped out at 26 psychological. And I wanted to see a bit more of a pullback here to establish a higher low in the $23 range and then get the bull break. But the bulls are holding up pretty resiliently the last 4 days, and you can see 26 is clearly the level that the bulls need to break for a follow-through. We've topped out now at 25.90, 25.82, 26.26. So if we get over 26, we're looking up at 27.74 as the next level, and our new support, if we look at it on the 4-hour time frame, is just a clear channel. Support is down at 24.16. We have a higher low at 24.56. But it's all about that resistance level, which we're going to be looking to test first thing. TLRY does have earnings approaching as well, so we have to be keeping an eye out on that. But some similar setups, and watching for TLRY to get some follow through. If we don't get that break at 26, I have no interest in a bullish entry. So it's all about that resistance level, and let's see if we can get that break similar to what IIPR did. It's not the exact same setup, but on the 4-hour time frame, this would be the left shoulder, this would be the head, this would be the right shoulder, and then breaking 26 would break the neckline, again, just like IIPR, as a break of 33.70 broke the neckline for significant follow-through. We're going to be watching TLRY for the same thing. So I am liking the nice clear setups to be watching T-God, TLRY, and for everybody else, we're watching to see what kind of consolidation we get on WEED. on the daily and what kind of further downside we see on ACB. So lots going on, remaining protective, keeping a whole pile of cash for when I'm comfortable that the trends have shifted and the sentiment has shifted heading into the fall. And we're going to be looking for things to heat up a little bit. One other thing about TLRY is it's still not being added to ETFs. So there is a period where we have to wait before those ETFs can go after an IPO, but hasn't happened yet, and we're going to be keeping an eye out for it because the lack of resistance, along with the supply and demand makeup, the fact that, you know, if demand increases with these ETFs, supply is not going to see a significant increase, in my opinion, and we're going to be looking for the price to respond really well once those ETFs do get going. So I appreciate you watching. Again, check out that Facebook group, Marijuana Stock Traders. It's a closed group, so I think you do have to get approved to get in, but they will add you in. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you soon.